I'd like to call this executive committee meeting to order for McLean County on November 13th, 2023. Number one, roll call. We have all members present, so we have a quorum. We can conduct business. We have consent agenda 2A and B, and that is approval of the meeting minutes for October 9th and recommended to pay the bills and transfers. I have a total of $690,499.83. May I have a motion for the consent agenda? We have a motion by Member Klein, a second by Member Lehman. Any questions or discussion needed? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to 3, there are no appearances by the members of the public, so we'll move on to departmental matters, and we have the appointments and reappointments for, we do have some new appointments, and that's for the Central Illinois Regional Airport. So we have 3 new appointments, but then we have reappointments for drainage districts, the Law and Justice Commission, Extension Board, and Public Aid Committee. And may I have a motion for 4A, 1A, and B? We have a motion by Member Friedrich, a second by our Vice Chair, Member Johnston. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. We're now moving on to 4A, 4A, 1C, and that is information technology, and we have C1, and that is request a change order for the online RMS system contract for cyber public safety. May I have a motion for that? We have a motion by Member Klein and a second by Member Lehman. And the floor is yours, Craig.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a change order to the RMS system that was approved by the county board. When we did the RFP for our online RMS system, we put out for the exact number of officers that we were replacing in Aegis, and we weren't exactly sure where the seams would meet between the records management and the jail management and the courts management. So this change order gives us the ability to grant view-only privileges and partial privileges to those other agencies that still need that interagency coordination. So this will provide Bloomington Dispatch and METCOM with what they need. It does also provide for the rural agencies to have a multi-factor authentication method without us having to make each of them a member of the McLean County network and system to do that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Can you give me an example of a rural agency, please?
Sure, that would be like Leroy, Danvers, Hudson, PD, so.
And can you give me an example of what they are doing that you would need to give them access to this?
So currently they log into Aegis, the system, in order to use the records management portion of Aegis, but that requires 2-factor authentication, and it gets technically too complicated. Our choices were to have them assume that responsibility and let them do 2-factor authentication through Caliber Public Safety with the Caliber Public Safety methodology, or to make them members of the McLean County system and network, and then we have to manage that and provide it and provide funding and bill back for it and all of that.
So these are police agencies?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Vice Chair Johnston.
Thank you. So I've never worked on the administrative side of a multi-factor authentication. What happens if somebody leaves their employee, but they had previously been granted access? How easy is it to restrict them from accessing it?
It's very easy. It's very quick. It's really just a matter of the representative of that agency letting us know. Now, Bloomington and Normal will administer their own, ISU will administer their own. We administer typically ourselves, and we have in the past administered the rural agencies too. We still haven't actually ferreted out a complete intergovernmental agreement that would dictate, that auspice of how that's going to function. So if you had an officer who leaves Leroy PD tomorrow, it would be up to the Leroy chief to notify us immediately and get that access cut off.
Okay, as long as that gets included in the intergovernmental agreement, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Additional questions? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and vote then for 4A 1C-1. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? That motion passes. We're going on to 4A 1C-2, request approval of the annual integrated justice system maintenance agreement with Cyber Public Safety. May I have a motion, please? We have a motion by Member Schaefer, a second by Vice Chair Johnston. And Craig?
Sure. So this is the annual maintenance renewal for the product that we already have in place and have been using for the last 20 some odd years. We did negotiate a discount with them based on when we go live with the new product, since we wouldn't be using the police product and both products simultaneously. So depending on the go live date, it depends on the amount of a little bit of add-in. The later we go, the more we'll continue to pay into the old system. But right now, we're looking at going live in March, so.
Member Schaefer?
Thank you. Since I haven't received any updates on this lately. So is this going to be the full RMS? Because I know that there was supposed to be a partial RMS that was supposed to be implemented. And so is this then the full RMS? And then it says by January 31st that we have to increase the amount we pay them. But if they're the ones that are delaying possible implementation, then how is that going to work?
Yeah, we're at the point where I don't think either side sees them as being at a point where they would be the cause of the delay at this point. The partial that you're talking about was whether we moved all the data at one time or not. At this point, we would anticipate, we've been discussing moving all the data at the go live rather than just partial data, so.
So that would alleviate some of the interactions that would have had to been built and occurred by doing it that way? Is this?
It does help in that regard. We won't be using the Boomi product we've talked about to go between the old RMS system Aegis and the new one. Because it's the same vendor on both sides, it was more effective to just let them write their own connection between the two systems, which they've done before when they've migrated someone from the Caliber old system to the Caliber new. So that'll be a direct connection there rather than going through the third party.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and vote then for 4-1C-2, and that is the annual maintenance agreement for Cyber Public Safety. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We don't have, so 4A1, or 4A2, there are, 1D, there is no Behavioral Health Council information, and so we're going to move on to 4A3, and that is presentation of information. So we have the information technology report. Is there anything you would like to highlight, Mr. Nelson?
I have to actually go back and look that part up. I think I think we're going to spend a little bit of time in the slides. Why don't I focus on that at this point?
Okay, I do have a, how close are we on this vital records implementation?
When we went live with, or when we awarded the vital records, they told us that it would be a while before they could, their project schedule was pretty backed up. I don't have that in front of me, but I want to say, I believe it's March, I believe was the date that we have for go live, but I'm doing that from memory. I can get that information for you.
That's okay, you just have that you're working towards that implementation, so I was trying to figure out your contribution and what that entails. And so if you're close to implementation, I would think that you would have your contribution would be pretty significant. So can you help me with that?
Sure. At this point, what we're doing is we're actually converting the data. So we're taking it from the legacy systems and getting that packaged and sent over to them for data conversion.
Okay, and is that the same thing with your ERP then?
Now, the ERP is a little bit more of an extended project. Right now, we're working with Barry Dunn, and we've invited the stakeholders, the treasurer's office, the auditor's office, administration, HR. Those are some of the key ones. And then we're having biweekly meetings on Mondays. They are going to be on site at the end of this month to do what they call fact-finding discovery. They'll be going over a lot of our financial documents and policies, that type of thing. And so that's going to help them understand us so that we can create a more effective RFP. So,
All right, very good. Any additional questions related to the IT monthly report? All right, seeing none, we'll move on then to 4A3B, and that's the IT strategic plan. And I believe we need to put that on the floor, so may I have a motion? We have a motion by Vice Chair Johnston. Oh, I guess it's information only. Okay, very good. We don't have to. Thank you.
and Cassie said I'm limited to 90 minutes, so. I'll try to keep this moving. What's that?
It was 9 minutes.
Oh, 9, okay. We'll be closer to 9 than 90, so. We engaged with a company called Infotech, IT did, to help with the creation of a strategic plan. Infotech was founded in Canada, has a US presence, and they have over 30,000 members that use their services. They're largely a consulting firm, including City of Bloomington, Town of Normal. I'm in a couple of cohort groups that of IT managers that have used them as well. And they're very highly regarded within those groups. A little hard to see. I know if anyone wants this amazingly engaging slide deck at the end, just let me know and we'll get it into your hands. This is the McLean County IT org charts. That's Director of IT up there at the top, myself. We have one programmer. Then we have Matt Berger, who's here in the back of the room. He's our Assistant Director of IT and CTO. All those blue boxes report up to him. And so there's multiples in most of those blue boxes, times 2, times 3. They come up to him. That's our network guys, our help desk guys, a lot of the hands-on mechanics that you would think of. We then also have, we've got 2 GIS positions that are up there. And let me grab my paper copy, actually. I think that'll serve me a little bit better. Yeah. We have the Chief Database Coordinator and Database Coordinator. Those are the 2 guys who take care of Aegis full-time over in the Law and Justice Center. The 2 GIS folks I just mentioned. We have our Digital Media Coordinator, which is Mr. Leary. You see him at the back of the room most meetings. He takes care of our social media as well as broadcasting these meetings. And he gave me a hand in cleaning up these slides from where I was. Believe me, they were in worse shape. So kudos to Dan. We have an administrative specialist in our office. And then we have a justice program manager. He's our project manager who's helping us with the implementation of all the projects that we're working on related to to Aegis. The next slide is mislabeled. That's not an org chart. That's our scope of duties. So you can see I thought it might be helpful to just kind of lay out. Sometimes I think what IT does can be a little lost in the fog. And so we do manage computers, mobile devices, the networking equipment. We also manage the phones and the door card systems that are here. All of the network connections, whether they're wireless or wired. The procurement of technology typically goes through us per the county board budget policy. We answer a large number of FOIAs through email discovery and data discovery. We manage cybersecurity, which is pretty much a part of everything that we do anymore. Cybersecurity is intricately wound and integrally wound into everything we do. Website maintenance, which again is partially Mr. Leary in the back of the room, but also Joe Weeder, our programmer. We manage copier bids, contract management related to those, large number of RFPs, anything to do with software, firmware updates, the criminal justice projects we have going, and then of course our geographic information systems. And by the way, GIS Day is Wednesday. If you get a chance to stop by the Bone Student Center to see that I know our GIS people would love to see you. Our goal in doing this was we had already been doing annual SWOT analysis within the department, to assess our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But we'd never crafted a formal strategic plan, which I felt was just, we were always being a little too reactive, and I wanted to start becoming a little bit more proactive. So the goal in doing the strategic plan was really to assess our strengths and weaknesses, to benchmark ourselves against the industry, being government IT, and then to develop a strategic plan based upon those results. See, did that? No, there
May I
we
ask
go.
a quick question?
Yeah,
Is this annually that you will be doing this?
so, yeah, I will actually get to that process in
Okay.
just a second.
Okay,
It's a
Thank
good
you.
question. This is the process that Infotech lays out for us. Obviously we need to document our business goals and capabilities. And then what we're going to be talking about a little bit tonight is number 2, the CIO business vision. What this consisted of was sending out surveys to 60 of our county leaders, so department heads, their second in commands. And if the department was large enough to have, another tier, then we tried to hit those folks as well. Out of the 60, we got 40 responses back, and we'll go through some of that feedback momentarily here. The next step for me will be to then, there's another survey to be had between, in this case, it would be county administration and IT. They did also respond to the first survey, but this one gets more in alignment with what the organizational mission, goals, statements, values are. And then we work on CEO, CIO alignment. As part of that, you can read the rest of those steps, and I'll get to next steps at the end of the presentation. I won't go through all of these. But the idea is to resurvey these same items next year and the following year to see where we've grown, where are there new spots. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know where we're blind until someone helps us identify those areas. So there's a scorecard that'll be on the next few slides that you'll see. And the scorecard goes into 3 categories. So people could respond 1 through 10. If you responded in an 8 through 10 on the survey, then you were a supporter, as they define it. 7 was neutral, and a 1 through 6 would classify you as a detractor. Okay. So I was really happy. I wasn't sure, to be honest, where this was going to land, but the overall IT satisfaction score was 85%. And so you can see the dots as I explained. 85% is a good satisfaction score. The dots, the net promoter score, each dot is 10%. And so if you're looking at the the score there. The Net Promoter Score is 73, so that would be the 85% satisfaction less. In this case, it would have been 12% dissatisfaction in the red, giving me a Net Promoter Score of 73. That's what you see out there at the bottom of the green dots. And so that's kind of how that math works out on that. And then IT value, the second category that was measured was satisfaction that we provide high value relative to the perception of cost and staffing. A few highlights from the scorecard. We have detailed results from each department, and I didn't want to try to cram that into this. So I've just brought a few aggregate scores. As we reviewed these results, Matt and I with Infotech, they told us that 87 and 86, those two categories, were actually relatively high compared to most of our colleagues. The understands needs and communicates effectively. They said that they don't typically see that communication level at 86. The trending unavailable that you'll see running through the report is because it's the first year of the report. So as we do multiple years, we'll begin to see the direction that those things trend. They did also warn us that typically the first year after the survey, things tend to trend down and then back up. So we're hoping not to see that, but that is what they've told us. We did see one of the areas, one of the pain points that came up repeatedly through the survey was training. Now, we had already intuited that in our department, and we put together a program that would have started a few months ago if the room had been ready here, called Third Thursday Trainings, and we'll be kicking that off in January at this point. 11 to 2, we'll be running 2 tracks of training, one in this room and one in IT. So for instance, Excel is going to be highlighted in month number 1, as well as Microsoft Office Teams and Office 365. General training, high-level training will be here. If you have Excel issues like pivot tables and things that are a little bit more high concentration, then we'll take you downstairs to IT. We'll have a more select group. It'll be almost one-on-one for that. So we have no shortage of topics that we've been asked for. And the plan is to present that every 2 out of 3 months. Every third month, we lose this room to the CJCC for their noontime meeting, and we'll use that month to develop more curriculum. Core services, I know you need a microscope for this one, but this one is important. In the right-hand column of these 2 boxes is what the participants viewed as important. So the number 1 category that they saw as important is network and communication infrastructure. As you can see halfway down in the left box, the green number 1. And then you see the satisfaction survey on that line with it. So number 1, then number 2, up there at the top was security. We received some high marks for security. So as you work through it, then you get down, you start seeing the yellow bubbles. That's where we understand we're needing to put some focus and some attention. One area was client-facing technology. Now, some people responded to this as meaning themselves as the client. Other people responded to this as the public being the client. So we still have some work to do in ferreting out the details. We do have detailed responses that were provided and written by the respondents that we can reach back to them and work with them on. On security, the feedback was that we're doing well with compliance, regulatory, the ability to access the data they need, and Office desktop security. Where we have a pain point is people needing remote access. The current method of remote access just isn't providing a satisfactory experience to most people. And as a user of that, I understand their complaints. So we've actually been working, Matt and I, to develop a couple solutions that will not require us to go through the current methodology that we're using today. They measure capacity in 4 different ways. I'll touch on each one of these really quickly. So a lower number is better on capacity needs. So this is, to what extent is your group constrained or prevented from your goals by IT capacity? And so the lower the number here, the better. We can identify the folks who provided red and yellow responses here, and we'll get back with them. We did have some cases where the people we most wanted to hear from in a department at the top weren't necessarily the people who completed the survey. It might have been a couple tiers down within that department. So I'm hoping that maybe we can take a hard copy of that survey and go over it in person with some of the top tiers from those departments. Shadow IT, this is kind of how often do you have to go do your own thing and work around us to get things done? So 22%. Again, we want to see that number come down. Had some pretty decent scores, I felt, in terms of satisfaction to get projects completed and to deliver effectively. Work orders, so this is the help desk system. We really, although there are a few things that other people jump in on, we truly have only 3 people who are fully dedicated to help desk in the organization of 900 employees. And we found, and I'll get to that in a minute though, that was actually one of the pain points that people brought up. Again, this is kind of a repeat from earlier, but in terms of relationships, I feel like we have good understanding, communicate. Again, training is lacking. This relates more to organizational objectives. So we tried to match this up with things that we know have been the focus of administration, like service leadership and innovation, things of that nature. And this is how we scored out across those. Benchmarking, you recall that was one of our second goals that we wanted to achieve in this. We did find that compared to other government IT organizations, that the budget here is a smaller percent of revenue than it is in other organizations, and that staffing is also a smaller percentage of users for the size of organization that we are. So the next steps, it's like, what are we going to do from here? You know, we need something tangible. So we did a second survey, which has actually a survey within IT, within our own folks. And that helps clarify roles and goals and who's responsible for what. It's a responsibility matrix. So Matt and I need to finish that review. We're launching T3, the training initiative, in January. We're going to go back and meet with the detractors, those who had red responses, to find out what we can do to improve and answer those sore spots. And we're going to do the same with those who are focused on innovation and client-facing technology issues. Then we're going to try to continue to do well those things where we already received positive responses. So we did a lot of policy work internally this past year, about 15 policies. We're going to continue with security, communication, project management. We're actually training 3 new people in proper formal project management within the department right now, and bringing them up in that capacity. 2 of them are sitting in the back of the room as I speak. We'll continue to assess capacity against those capacity needs that we zipped through a little bit ago. And we're going to continue to investigate options for collaboration. We're already involved with NACO, and I, by the way, now sit on the AI Ethics Committee for NACO, and we'll be participating in that work. And we continue to work closely with the city and the town. We don't have many private-public partnerships yet, but I'm open to investigating those. This is hard to read, but I think it's valuable. Let me see if I can get that. Okay, I'll just read a few of them for you, because the thing was that it sort of started to reiterate some of the things that we already said. The first one, IT is very well done in the organization. I won't go through all of these. I can send them to you, but Dan, is it? I don't know if I have a way of zooming this up at all. But that was the get out of the comments that were provided. 1/3 of them said, thank you, you're doing a great job, et cetera, but you need more help desk people. That was a large part of it. Help desk, training, client-facing technology, those were the pain points. So that's all I put together for tonight because, I mean, we could spend hours literally walking through this stuff, but I don't think you want to. I am happy to answer any questions that you've got, though.
We do have a couple of questions. We'll start with Vice Chair Johnston.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. The only timeline on the next steps that you have is January. Do you have any kind of rough idea about when you plan to sit down with the detractors and when you'd like to try to tackle the client-facing technology? That one's probably my primary objective that I'd like to see worked on. But do
Yeah.
you have any kind of timeline for that?
No. It'll be soon. A lot of it is driven by the amount of capacity that we have for the other projects that are in motion right now. We just finished getting a lot of the work done, prepped for the justice projects and getting the budget together was a pretty good effort on our part. This week, for instance, I'm out at MECCOM evaluating 4 or 5 different CAD vendors. But I would hope to meet with the detractors before the end of December.
Okay,
I mean, that's a sooner than later thing that I want to do.
sure.
And the same thing for we did actually already put on the calendar and then had to pull it. Matt and I going through the internal IT governance review, the survey from our own folks, on what they see and how they perceive things. We took a quick look at it one time, but we found that there were definitely some mismatched perceptions about what people think they're responsible for and what they're accountable for. So we need to sit down and get that clarified.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And we have Member Schaefer.
Thank you. And it's probably is kind of related because you're talking about capacity. And then if you look at our peers that are revenue percentage and the staffing percentage is much lower than those peers. And then we have issues potentially with capacity, needing more this or that or the other thing. So I guess, is any of that built into the 2024 budget? Or how are we going to look at that moving forward? Because if we don't have enough people or we don't have enough revenue coming in to afford those people, then are we already working on that now, or are we waiting till 2025 for that?
No. So there is something built into 2024. We have 2 additional positions as part of the 2024 budget that we requested and so far have been recommended by the county administrator's office. One of them directly speaks to our capacity. It's a second system administrator who will help us with things technical, the technical team, servers, backups, things of that nature. The other position is a records program coordinator. And I think this will actually hit some of the pain points in other areas of the survey. But we have a lot of offices. In 2000, we pushed records management out. We decentralized it to the individual offices. Some offices have done a fantastic job with that. Some have done a less than fantastic job with that. And we're going to use that position, to manage the space most effectively that we do have. For instance, out at JDC, and that there's actually software that can help us manage the space usage for record storage. But we're also going to use that person to help us figure out how to best carve up and use the digital records issues that we have. So, with the body cam video footage that's come in, records retention and record storage and photos and video, it's creating a whole new challenge And what we really don't want to have is every single office needing to buy their own new video storage server and then trying to back that up. So this person will help coordinate the usage of that so we can get, a larger device, but then allocate it and charge back as necessary, depending on usage and storage. So I think if we can help them get their own records cleaned up, I think there will be another value realized from IT that's in some of those other service points that we talked about. But don't be surprised if I come back trying to get another help desk person in '25.
Additional questions? Member Lehman.
Yeah, just a curiosity, since the help desk person has kind of become a common theme, is the challenge that the end user is experiencing like elongated wait times? Is it, trying to connect them to the right thing? And if it is a wait time thing, how long is the average wait for our end user to get the information that they need to do to be able to do their job?
I can't really give you a simple answer to the average wait time. And we have kind of a saying between Matt and I where a ticket's not a ticket, not a ticket. Some of them are 6-week project tickets and some of them are 6-minute tickets and, but we have made one decision that we think will help this immediately. We really had 2 issues. One is number of staff, but the second one is that if you go back about 2 years, we typically have very low turnover in IT, but we did have a clump of turnover about 2 years ago. We lost 3 or 4 key people all within about a 2-month window of time. And so we had to go out and hire 2 new help desk people out of the 3 within a month of each other. So we've had them together for training and grooming and understanding. But we are now ready. All 3 of them have been based in this building, but we've already identified and talked to the person and we've made arrangements. We're going to be relocating one of them full-time into the Law and Justice Center. So we already have one person embedded within the Sheriff's Department to provide them with that service. But now this person will be available there. So that should provide shorter wait times for both the Law and Justice Center and the Health Department.
Thank you.
That raises a question. Do each one of those areas then have a separate phone number or is it a common help desk number and then a key to a particular area? How does one get moved to the specific area they need to receive help from?
We don't actually have the staffing to manage a phone system for help desk. So it is literally a ticket system. You can put anything you want, attachment, whatever, into an email and just email it to the help desk and it automatically creates a ticket. Or some departments like to have a designated person put in tickets for their staff so that they don't end up replicating the same issue through 7 employees. In the health department, if one thing's down, it could be impacting 20 people. So a lot of times the health department, for instance, will have one designated person put in a ticket for that group. I don't think I answered all of your question, but
So it's all through help desk, there's not a phone call?
Correct.
It's all through ticket-based?
right. Now, obviously, if that's down, we do have a primary departmental number. And we're working, Matt is actually a key guy on this right now. We're working on instituting soft phones so that our phones will be paired with our cell phones and we'll be able to, wherever we're at, the one number will reach us. But we find that things get chaotic if people are trying to call us when we're already in the middle of solving one problem or ticket. It just makes everything else go longer. So we're more efficient if we can work from a help desk ticket system.
So how does location help? I'm confused by that.
Well, because with all 3 people located in this building, there's travel time of about 5 minutes each way between here and the Law and Justice Center.
And is that for hardware then? Because software, I would think that your location would not matter if you're working a hardware situation or software situation.
Right, but I don't know what percentage, but I'd say 50% of them are hardware related as well. I mean, it's people who have broken, copiers or printers or monitors need replaced, or we're updating the courts, or,
Okay. I just didn't see in 2023 location being a primary.
yeah, for software, you're right. We do have the ability to remote into anyone's desktop and address those issues that way that we can. The other challenge, honestly, is if I had another help desk person today, Matt and I talked about this, we would probably allocate them to kind of round robin the remote sites, highway, Kamlara Nursing Home, and do like health checkups. They might be at one, Monday, another one Tuesday, another one Wednesday, another one Thursday. But then we would also rotate who's doing that duty between help desk people so that, one person's not doing that all the time. So,
Thank you very much for your time. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you so much. We're going to
thank you.
move on to departments or committees. So we're going to have 4B, and that's Finance Committee. Mr. Friedrich.
Thank you, Chairman, or Madam Chair. Finance Committee brings one action items for executive, and that's 4B1A, request approval for fiscal year 2024 compensation plan. If Madam Chair would entertain my request for the explanation on this compensation plan, pass that off to Administrator Cassie Taylor. There's some Scribner errors, and we have a lot of things that need to be precise, and she was gracious enough to make sure I don't make any of those errors.
So you're making a motion to put that on the floor?
Well, yes, thank you.
And I need a second. We have a second by our Vice Chair, Member Johnston. And that being the case, then I think we're going to pass the baton to our Administrator, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Metzger. Member Friedrich was referring to 3 additional areas that I want to point out to you. We noted in the memo that much of this was cleanup, but after our Finance Committee meeting, we noted some other areas for cleanup that I want to note this afternoon that you'll be approving. So on page 16, at the top of the page, where you'll see the word permanent, we have crossed out, done a strike through for the words permanent on number 1 and 2. And then on page 20, in section 2, that first paragraph, there is a date that is 1-1-20234. So that is supposed to refer to 2023. And then lastly, on page 25, under B, eligibility, we crossed out, struck through the word permanent there as well and added full-time general employees for clarity. So those are additional changes that we felt were appropriate and would like to be included in this vote.
So everything was approved in finance. However, those are the few changes that were made after finance.
Correct.
Very good. Questions? Member Klein.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I have 2 questions. One, Ms. Taylor, employee type number 6 and employee type number 5 both include Bloomington Election Commission. Is that a redundancy, or are there people of both types in that agency? Or so number 5 and 6.
There are types in both of those
Okay.
designations.
I don't know if it would be wise to put something parenthetically. I mean, it sort of looks like they're both types, maybe some notation that they're different classifications. I don't know. It just looks a bit confusing to have it repeated without context. But what do I know? So I have another question. Sorry, go ahead.
So are you suggesting another edit to be approved? I'd have to check with HR.
I don't know if I'm the
on
only person who finds that a bit confusing, that they're listed without context. And it's the only one that's duplicated. That's why I thought it might need it further.
So that CO and DM would have some, we need some explanation as to the difference between those two. Because everything else appears
For-
to be the same.
Correct, for the Bloomington Election Commission in particular. I don't know if-
However, except for merit commission, and the last bullet point is slightly different.
Well, yeah, so CO has Supervisor of Assessments, Board of Review, and then Bloomington Election Commission, and then the Bloomington Zoning Board of Appeals, and then Merit Commission, Jury Commission, and BEC are all under 6, the last bullet.
Oh, they're both commissioners. So I will check on that. I'd like to leave it as stands now, but
Sure.
I will check with HR to see why the difference in those two categories.
Okay. I have another question. So
Please.
I'm not sure that this is the right place or the right time, but I just wanted to check, given that we're reviewing this, have we integrated into our policy anywhere the changes for the Paid Leave for All Workers Act, which is going to go into effect January 1, 2024? This was passed by the legislature in March, but will be enacted in a month and a half. Maybe it's not meant to be in this.
So this would be updated in our employee policies, but it's not in this document for compensation. So this,
Okay.
this compensation is very specific to how we would compensate our employees for merit increases or their
Okay,
annual
so it doesn't
increases.
need to be here, but it is where it needs to be?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So should there be changes to 5 and 6 on page 16, then you would, we would need to stand up for that? Is that accurate?
Yes, I would introduce a stand-up for
Okay.
those changes.
Otherwise, if we don't have a stand-up, we know that it needs to stand the way it is. Is
Okay.
that accurate?
That would be my
Very good.
preference, yes.
Is that good with you, Member Klein? Thank you. All right. So all in favor of 4B1A, say aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Member Friedrich.
Thank you. We'll be bringing 2 other items to the present for the full board, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to 4C, and that's Health Committee, and we have our Chair, Ms. Schaefer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Health Committee has no items for action today, although we will have a couple items for the board on Thursday. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. We'll move on to 4D, and that's 4D, and that's Chair Erickson.
Thank you, Chairwoman Metzger. The Justice Committee brings 3 items for action. The first item is item 4D1A, request approval of a memorandum of understanding between Bloomington Police Department, Normal Police Department, McLean County Sheriff's Department, and McLean County Juvenile Court Services as part of the Juvenile Diversion Program, and I so move.
May I have a second on that? We have a second by Member Schaefer. Questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of 4D1A, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next item on the agenda is item 4D1B, request approval of an appellate prosecutor contract with the Office of the State's Attorney's Appellate Prosecutor, and I so move.
And may I have a second, please? We have a second by Member Rogel. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. For 4D1B, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Chair Erickson.
Last item on the agenda is item 4D1C, request approval of an interlocal agreement between the City of Bloomington, Town of Normal, and the County of McLean for the 2023 Burn Justice Assistance Grant Program Award, and I so move.
And I have a second by Member Friedrich. Any questions? Very good. Seeing none, all in favor of 4D1C, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Back to you, Chair Erickson.
Chairwoman Metzger, the Justice Committee has no other items for action. We have additional items to be presented to the board. Thank you.
Very good. We're moving on to 4E, and that is our Chair for Property, Ms. Chair Lehman.
Thank you very much, Chair Metzger. The Property Committee has no items to be presented for action, although we do have 2 items to be presented before the board on Thursday. Thank you.
All right, we have 4F, and that is our Land Use and Development, and we have Chair Klein.
Thank you, Chair Metzger. We're all having a hard time today remembering our faces and our names.
It's fine.
We don't have, the Land Use and Development Committee does not have any items for action, nor will we have anything for the board, and so obviously we're doing nothing. As you can tell, we're actively very busy working our way through the Zoning Board of Appeals process on a number of issues that will eventually make their way to you.
Quite painful.
Quite painfully, yes. I'm happy to answer any and all questions you might have.
And we have a question from our member Erickson.
Yeah, where do some of those stand? Do you expect they'll be presented to the county board this month, next month, January? I mean, what do you think?
Definitely not this month. If there is any mercy in the world, it'll be in December. At this point, we have essentially 2 overlapping concurrent situations happening at the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have the text amendment that the Land Use and Development Committee brought, and we are now 6 hours into testimony on that issue. Still pending. It has reached the end of the public comment phase, but there's still rebuttals. And then we have the secondary situation of we have an outstanding request for a special use permit by One Earth Sequestration, which has reached 3 hours into that process. So we will meet again tomorrow night. I believe at first about the text amendment, and should that be finished, then we'll move on to the One Earth Sequestration, but
That's good enough.
She has no control.
Oh, no, it's, yeah, this is confusing.
So all questions answered?
Yes, I'm done.
Very good.
you're welcome at any time.
We're going to move on to 4G, and that's Transportation Committee, and that is our Chair, Jim Rogal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Transportation Committee has no items to be presented for action, but we will have 6 items to be presented to the board. I can answer any questions if anyone has any.
Seeing none, we'll move to 4H, and that's 1A, request approval of a resolution establishing the county board meeting dates for 2024. And may I have a motion for that? We have a motion by the Member Schaefer and a second by Vice Chair Johnston. And Ms. Taylor.
We have to establish this resolution prior to the beginning of the next fiscal year, so you have the dates before you.
Are there any questions? All in favor of 4H1A, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have 4H1B, and that's request approval of an amendment for the fiscal year 2024 recommended budget for County Board 0001.0001.0001. And may I have a motion for that? We have a motion by Member Lehman and a second by Member Klein and Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Metzger. On page 41 in your budget, you will see a memo explaining this amendment. We had one township who turned in their books to the assessor a little behind schedule. That created a need for a change to our corporate general fund by $196,841 in order to keep the tax rate the same. And so in the property committee, we did reduce one project at the JDC that we understood in the beginning was going to be a much more complicated project. We were able to finish that project this year at a lower cost, and so the needs for those funds in 2024 was not necessary. And so we are asking that this budget item would be to amend the proposed revenues for the county board budget 0001, 0001, 0001 to match that change to the property committee budget.
Questions? I am going to ask one question. What solution will be in place to prevent this from happening in the future?
I know that the assessor's office has been working directly with that township to try to encourage that individual to turn in his books on time. However, that is an elected position, and there are fail-safes in place should it get to a critical point. We were almost to that point, but did not have to take those next steps. So I guess my answer to that would be administration and the assessor's office will be on top of it next year to try to show encouragement early on to get those books in on time.
Can we move that fail-safe date up, or is that legislated?
It's legislated.
All right. I think that solves that question. All right. All in favor of 4H1B, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. 4I1A, and that's request consideration of approval for departmental budgets under the oversight of the executive committee, and that's for Vice Chair Johnston. So I guess I should let you read that instead of me, so.
Would you like me to repeat it?
I would like you to repeat that, so you all know what's going to happen. I'm going to call the number, and then you're going to ask for that to be placed on the floor. Thank you. You have to help me through this, Ms. Johnston.
All right, so item 4I1A is I request consideration and approval of departmental budgets under the oversight of the executive committee.
And she moves, so I need a second. We have a second by Member Klein. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, 4I1A, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. We're going to 4A1B, and that's Chair Friedrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 41B, request consideration and approval of departmental budgets under the Oversight and Finance Committee, and I so move.
And we have a second by Member Lehman. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, 4I1B, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 4I1C, and that's Chair Erickson.
Thank you, Chairwoman Metzger. 4I1C, request consideration and approval of departmental budgets under the oversight of the Justice Committee, and I so move.
May I have a second? We have a second by Member Schaefer. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, 4I1C, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 4I1D, and that's going to our Chair Lehman.
For 4I1D, we have request consideration and approval for departmental budgets under the oversight of the property committee, and I so move.
May I have a second, please? We have a second by Vice Chair Johnston. Any questions? Seeing none, 4I1D, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. 4I1E, and that goes to Chair Schaefer.
Thank you. That is request consideration and approval of department budgets under the oversight of the Health Committee, and I so move.
May I have a second, please? We have a second by Member Klein. Questions? Comments? Seeing none. All in favor of 4I1E, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 4I1F, and that goes to Chair Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. At 4I1F, request consideration and approval of departmental budgets under the oversight of the Land Use and Development Committee, and I so move.
May I have a second? I have a second by Member Friedrich. Questions? Comments? We're going to vote on 4I1F. Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 4I1G, and that goes to Chair Rogal.
Yes, 4I1G, request consideration and approval of departmental budgets under the oversight of the Transportation Committee, and I so move.
May I have a second, please? We have a second by Member Schaefer. Any questions? All in favor of 4I1G, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move to 4I2, and that's request approval of fiscal year 2024 combined annual appropriation and budget ordinance as recommended by the oversight committees, which we just passed, so we all know that, right? I so move. May I have a second? We have a second by Vice Chair Johnston. Are there any questions? All right, we are going to vote on 4I2, and that is request approval fiscal year 2024 combined annual appropriation budget ordinance. Say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. 4I3, request approval of the amendment to the full-time equivalent resolution for fiscal year 2024. I so move. And our second comes from Member Lehman. Are there any questions on that particular? All right, seeing none. 4I3, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. 4I4, request approval of the 5-year capital improvement budget as recommended by the oversight committees. May I have I move, and may I have a second? We have a second by Member Schaefer. Any questions? We're going to vote on 4I4. Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 4I5, request approval of the McLean County 2023 tax levy ordinance, and that's found on page 49 and 53. And I so move. May I have a second on that? We have a second by Vice Chair Johnston. Any questions on that particular topic? Seeing none. 4I5, all in favor, say aye. Aye. No. And we have one no vote, and that was by Member Erickson. But the motion passes. And we're moving on to other business and communications. 5, our next meeting is on December 11th at 4 p.m. And you can see those dates for our upcoming meetings. And those have been very clear in all of the committees. So please put those on your calendars so we are here on the correct day, because as we know, sometimes that week when it falls, that first day of the month falls in the middle of the week, it gets a little confusing. So I think all business has been concluded, so I believe we're adjourned.